It seems like just yesterday that we reviewed Xiaomi's Poco M4. And what do you know, we have a new generation on our hands with the new Poco M5s. The Pocos just keep coming, so what's the deal with this one, and could it be the budget mid-ranger to suit your needs? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our Poco M5s review. The Poco M5s is a new phone, but we've actually seen something just like it a couple of times before. It's a rebrand of the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10s, which is also the same as the Redmi Note 11 SE in India. The features that may set it apart from other budget mid-rangers are its bright OLED display, relatively decent chipset, and good battery life. Let's start off with the Poco M5s's design. The camera bump has the same design as the Redmi Note 10 series, except for the Poco logo next to it. The back is matte and made of plastic, and it curves into the glossy plastic frame. It's nice to have ingress protection at this price, even though it is just IP53 against dust and light splashes of water. The display of the Poco M5s is a 6.43-inch OLED with Gorilla Glass 3 protection, a 1080p resolution, and a standard 60Hz refresh rate. At this price point, there are always some trade-offs. The Poco M5s brings OLED tech, but you don't get the high refresh rate you see on some competitors' LCDs. This means that when you're swiping and scrolling on the interface, it might not feel quite as smooth here. But on the other hand, since this is an OLED, you get excellent contrast and deeper blacks than an LCD. Content is sharp here, and you get fairly accurate colors, and a Widevine L1 DRM for 1080p streaming. Brightness here is pretty good as well. We measured a maximum of 470 nits with the manual brightness slider, and this can boost to nearly 760 nits in auto mode when out in the sun. For audio, the Poco M5s has a headphone jack and a pair of stereo speakers. The speakers earned a very good mark in our loudness test, but the sound quality is just okay, with hardly any bass. You can wake up and unlock the Poco M5s using the side-mounted fingerprint reader that's built into the power button. It's fast and reliable. The M5s comes with 64 or 128 gigs of storage on board, and you can expand that further through microSD card. The interface of the Poco M5s is a familiar one. It's Xiaomi's MIUI 13 based on Android 12. It's a highly customized yet smooth UI that's pretty much the same that you'll get on all recent Xiaomi devices. If you'd like to learn more about MIUI 13's specific features, you can check out our dedicated video. Under the hood of the Poco M5s is a MediaTek Helio G95 chipset, built on a 12nm process. It doesn't support 5G connectivity, but it provides some pretty solid performance for the price. In benchmarks, both the CPU and GPU scores are some of the best amongst the competition. They still aren't great, but there's enough power here to run plenty of popular games. The Poco M5s is powered by a large 5000 mAh battery, just like many other Redmi and Poco phones. It aced our battery tests, scoring an endurance rating of 132 hours. And with the bundled 33-watt adapter, charging speed is pretty decent. We were able to charge the phone from 0 to 53% in half an hour. The Poco M5s has a quad camera setup on the back. One is just a depth sensor, but besides that, there's a 64-megapixel main cam, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide, and a 2-megapixel macro cam. The main camera's photos come out in 16 megapixels by default, and they have good colors and contrast, low noise, and wide dynamic range. But the detail level is mediocre, and up close, it looks heavily processed and over-sharpened. Portrait photos are pretty solid for the class. The subjects are well exposed with lively colors, and the subject separation is decent. The 8-megapixel photos from the ultra-wide camera have good detail for this sort of cam, and there are punchy colors, good contrast, and low noise. You again get that over-processed look here, and the dynamic range is rather average. 2-megapixel macro shots are rather poor. They're soft and over-processed looking, with narrow dynamic range. These shots aren't the easiest to take either, since this camera doesn't have autofocus. Low light photos from the main camera are just okay. The detail level is poor, and the heavy processing is noticeable. But the exposure is alright, and colors have enough saturation. There is a night mode you can toggle, but for some reason it's not very effective. These shots take longer to process, and while you do get some restored highlights from time to time, shadows are still dark, and these photos are noisy. The low-light photos from the ultra-wide are dark, soft, and noisy. There's no night mode support for this camera. Selfies from the 13-megapixel front-facing cam are quite nice. They're detailed and colorful, with low noise and good exposure and contrast. The dynamic range could be wider, but we still like these selfies. The Poco M5s can record video with its main cam in up to 4K at 30 FPS, and electronic stabilization is always on for the 30 FPS modes. The quality is good, there's plenty of detail, low noise, good-looking colors, and wide dynamic range. The ultra-wide cam takes 1080p videos, and these are low in detail, and is overprocessed like in the still photos. The dynamic range is alright though, and the colors are accurate. So that's the Poco M5s. It's quite a feature-packed phone for the budget. You get a splash-resistant design, a bright OLED screen, a decent chipset, stereo speakers, and great battery life. There are competitors that offer a high refresh rate on the screen, but if 60Hz doesn't bother you, then the Poco M5s has a lot to offer. It's nothing we haven't seen before from Xiaomi, but it's still worth recommending. Thanks for watching guys, and see you on the next one.